Hello and welcome back to Everything Boats with Captain Frank Lanier, where we discuss boats and boating, from maintenance and repairs to seamanship and safety, as well as everything in between. This podcast is a companion to my YouTube channel of the same name, so if you like and find it useful, be sure to subscribe and please check out my YouTube channel as well, where you'll find hundreds of informative videos on pretty much every boating topic imaginable. So for today's podcast, we're going to be discussing how to change your boat's engine oil the easy, no stress way. As with any maintenance procedure, the easier it is to do, the more likely that it'll be done. And that is certainly true with your engine oil changing. So what we're going to be discussing today are some tips on how to make your engine oil change process a lot smoother and easier. Make it easier for you so you don't dread it. And if you don't dread it, then hopefully you'll do it as required and extend the service life of your engine. In addition to the importance from a maintenance standpoint, routine engine oil changes also provide an opportunity to spot signs of potential problems, such as wear and contamination, before they can morph into catastrophic repairs. Engine manufacturers typically recommend engine oil changes every 100 hours of use or annually at a minimum. Diesel engines tend to be a little bit harder on oil lubrication properties than gasoline engines. One reason many experts recommend diesel engine oil be changed every 50 hours of use rather than the 100 hours commonly quoted. Let's talk a little bit about preparation and getting psyched up and ready to change your engine oil. In addition to your normal oil changing preparations, such as purchasing the correct type and amount of oil, gathering the necessary tools and such, you want to place catch pans and oil absorbent pads beneath the engine and the oil filter prior to starting. This adds an extra layer of protection to keep accidental leaks, dropped filters, and such from reaching the bilge. Or you've got a whole other world of problems opening it up if you get oil in your bilge, right? If you have engine oil in the bilge, you can't just pump bilge water over because now you're pumping a mixture of oil and bilge water that goes over. Now you have environmental fines from the Coast Guard. They catch them, just a whole litany of problems. So containment and preparation is the best defense against pumping over any oil overboard. You'll also want to bring the engine up to operating temperature prior to changing the oil. Warm oil not only drains easier, but it also holds more contaminants in suspension, meaning more abrasive gunk and chemical impurities will be removed from the engine when the oil is changed. Unlike your car, inboard marine engine installations typically provide a little or no access to the oil pan drain plug, or even enough space below the engine to place an open container to drain it into. As such, most installations will require the use of an oil evacuation system, one that uses a manual or electric pump to transfer oil from the engine to a separate container. For your oil evacuation systems, these can range from a portable manual or electrical vacuum pump designed to remove oil through the engine dipstick, the engine oil dipstick. You can also have permanently mounted ones plugged directly to the oil pan drain. In other words, you have your drain underneath the engine. You get to that, you screw in a fit and put the hose on, and now you've got a fixed pump that just drains it right out from the bottom of the oil pan. Look for a video in the future on how to install a fixed and permanent oil change system. I'll do up a video for that as well. Using a portable extractor pump via the dipstick hole is also the preferred method of removing oil from a four-stroke outboard. Even if the drain plug for a four-stroke engine is accessible, it's typically going to be awkward to get to, and it's going to be messy from an oil spill standpoint. That, even if you have it and you can kind of get to it, the extractor pump is hands down going to be the simplest and easiest and less messy way to go. Part of your oil changing routine should also be inspecting the old oil once drained. Oil that's milky in appearance is an indication that water, antifreeze, or transmission fluid is present, which could mean anything from a blown gasket to a cracked block. Rub a little bit of engine oil between your fingers. You rub a little bit between your fingers. If it feels abrasive or has a burnt odor, be concerned about bearing wear, although it could also simply mean that the oil hasn't been changed in a while and it's old. Filters, let's talk a little bit about oil filters. It goes without saying, but here we go. Anytime you change the oil in your engine, you should also change the oil filter. Drip-free filter changing can be challenging. So you'll also want to place, as we mentioned earlier, some oil pads or a catch pan beneath the filter prior to removal. Another option is placing a large plastic, Ziploc bag around the filter during removal. Once the filter is removed, the bag can then be sealed and used to transport the filter, further reducing chances of spills. Once the old oil is drained and the new filter is installed, the next step is adding new oil. Using a funnel will make adding oil easier in most all cases. You can even add a short section of hose to the funnel end to assist with those hard to reach oil fill locations. Once the proper type and amount of oil is added to your engine, start the engine and look for leaks, particularly around the oil pan and the filter. Keeping a fresh absorbent pad beneath the engine will aid in spotting leaks both before and after your oil changes. Okay, so now you got the oil change. What are you going to do with the old oil? Your marina may very likely have a oil change recycling program. But if not, there's some other options. Many automotive stores also have a disposal recycle program available. And if so, then you just dump your oil there. One thing I will caution though is you always want to keep waste fluids from your engine separately. In other words, what you don't want to do is if you change your engine oil and you're storing it or whatever, and you're also changing, let's say, your coolant, the fluid for your coolant system, you don't want to mix those two, right? Keep them separate because when you mix them, it also creates a virtual hell's broth of chemicals, that can even be more toxic and difficult to dispose of than simply just the oil or the antifreeze. So we talked a little bit earlier about, checking your oil, when you take it out, check the oil, see if it's milky, whatever. Another option is taking an oil sample and sending it to a lab for testing. This is a more scientific approach than a visual inspection. It's more useful when you're trying to track issues over the life of the engine, rather than spot checking. And what I mean by that is you get the most benefit of an oil sample testing if you do it regularly. Let's say you do it every time you change your oil. That gives you you've got multiple data points over the life of the engine, and it allows you to see if there's any, problems that slowly develop or ramp up and stuff. So it just gives you more data points, to watch for engine wear and stuff like that. That being said, it can certainly, it's good. Even a one-shot analysis for your oil, can show unusual wear in the presence of water, antifreeze, or diesel fuel. Kind of think of it as a blood test, right? One that may not predict you're going to have a heart attack, but it can tell you if you got a risk factor like high cholesterol. As we're talking about, look for a video in the future. I'll do a video also on how to take how the proper way to take an oil sample and send it in and all that stuff, the do's and don'ts for that. So look for that one in the near future. Bonus tips. We got bonuses for you guys, right? 7 tips for easier oil changes. And we're going to go on 1 through 7, right? Number 1, always warm the engine prior to changing the oil. Number 2, use a closed oil changing system whenever possible. They're easier to use, reduce the chances of spills, and makes it easier to transport used oil to a recycling facility. Number 3, when changing your engine oil, wrap the filter with a thick cloth during removal to avoid burning your hands, right? You're running the engine, it runs the oil through the oil filter and it gets hot, heats up. So protect your hands by using gloves or wrapping a thick cloth around the filter when you're taking it off. When you install your new filter, write the date and engine hours on it to serve as a visual reminder of when the next oil change is due. Number 4, use absorbent pads and containers to contain accidental spills. Number 5, temporarily disable automatic bilge pumps to prevent oil from accidentally being pumped overboard in the event of a spill. In other words, we talked a little bit earlier about if you pump the oil overboard, now you've got environmental fines and all the headaches that come with that. So I would just kill your bilge pump, any automatic switches or whatever you've got on your bilge system. And so that if you do accidentally, the feces hits the rotary oscillator and you just flood your bilge with engine oil, at least you don't have to worry about it, automatically pumping overboard. Number 6, recycle your used oil and properly dispose of your oil filters. And number 7, finally, dispose of used absorbent pads and rags properly. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. And if so, and you want to buy Captain Frank a cup of coffee, please click on the support link in the text description below. All monies received, not spent on coffee, will go towards making even more awesome podcasts for my channel. And as always, thank you for your support.